tell me, tell me about culture and what's important to you. What values do you place most on terms of culture, and values that you think are most important in your personal life and in business?
Well, it's interesting. Every company I've taken over, every situation I've taken over, I learned this from a good leader before, that every situation is different. So I like to involve the people that are working with me in kind of what the values are going to be for that company. If you were to go right now on Primerida's website, you'll see their mission, vision, their values. In fact, a lot of the companies I've been involved with, I brought the mission, vision, values thing.
Hello, everyone. John Fenton here, the CEO Sensei, and I am so happy. I'm so honored, actually, to have my next guest today, Scott Peters. Scott is a seasoned executive, successful CEO, successful board member. He has run his own company, founded his own company. He's been on public and private boards. He's run divisions of companies. He's varied in his background, his experience. And one thing I think is really, really special, and I want to acknowledge him for, is that he graduated from the U.S. Military Academy. So he's a serviceman. And Scott, I just want to thank you for your service to our country, first of all.
Thank you.
Awesome. So Scott, I've had a chance to get to know you over the last several months. You have such a broad career and have been so experienced in a lot of different ways. Give me just kind of a highlight of some of the key, big things or key things that you've done throughout your career that really stand out to you.
Okay, well, thanks, John. I guess what I'd say first is that I've been very, blessed, whatever you want to call it, blessed or fortunate in my career. But if I start, it's kind of, I would say the first phase was kind of the pre-phase or training phase, and it's kind of, West Point, the academy, and then going out and serving active duty, and then at the end, the tail end of that, I got a chance to go to business school. So that would kind of be the first phase. I guess the next phase I'd say was kind of the public mutual company kind of thing. So I spent a good amount of time at what you now know as Mass Mutual, General Electric, which right at the time when Jack Welch was running things, so it was a great environment to be part of. AT&T, big companies like that, and there was a few others. But I was lucky enough to kind of learn from a lot of good mentors and take on a bunch of roles. And, after I had a couple of subsidiary CEO roles, I then went on to the next phase, which is kind of the private equity phase of my career, which has been kind of the last portion here, where I've been able to run 5 different companies in different industries with different owners. So to me, I got to see a nice splash of things. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I'd say, that was kind of interesting about that was, in none of those cases did I have any prior experience in the business that I came to, which is a little bit different. If you think about it, a lot of times today, people will say, well, has somebody had 20 years in this industry? Well, I had no years industry in every one of the companies I took over. And the other thing, I guess, that I would just mention, and I got to give credit to it, while I was at GE, in fact, Jack Welch, he does not tell you, or he did not tell folks that he was going to show up. He didn't, not that he needs to. He would show up, and what he did in my case was he basically said, well, not only are you the COO of this, and I brought you in from the outside, but you're the head of Six Sigma. This is back in 1997. If you think about it, one of his comments was, well, any questions? And I said, yeah, what is it? I mean, this is at a time when no one else had done it yet. And so he kind of smiled and said, well, it's something you're going to have to get very good at, because I've told the street this is how we're going to be, the corporation of the century. So, I thank God that I was able to do that, because it taught me ways to run companies by using data and analysis versus kind of gut. So
yeah, real quick, Six Sigma. For some people, they may be familiar with it, but tell me just a little bit of snippet. What's the essence of Six Sigma?
Well, it's funny because I don't use the term very much anymore, because for me, Six Sigma is kind of cutting down on kind of errors and running things more efficiently, more effectively. and all that. For me, what I would call it is kind of much more process management or continuous improvement,
Yeah.
because what happens there is that, what I do is I kind of take all the processes, whether it's an operational process, a sales process, an HR process, legal, whatever it is in the company, and you want to take a look at those processes and map them out. You can't improve something that you don't know what it is, right? So
Right.
it's good to map it out. The second thing I'd say is you attach metrics to it, and not just metrics for metrics' sake, but ones that you'll actually make, a decision off of. And then lastly, it's kind of like prioritizing your initiatives. In leadership today, we don't have money to do everything we want to do.
Right.
Okay, and we also don't have the time. So prioritization and doing things in the right order makes a big difference. So that's really the essence of it.
And your experience in the U.S. military, I imagine, really gave you a foundation to help you in business going forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think leading, troops, in the military is not that much different from leading people in corporate America. I mean, people are people, right? What I would say is, at a very young age, you can be doing some pretty risky things, and you have a lot of responsibility. And if you could lose your life doing it, believe me, you're going to make sure you don't make mistakes, okay? Or you cut
Puts it
down
in
on.
perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, look, I saw, a lot of things happen that were unfortunate, and believe me, you learn from that. It's all part of kind of your training and stuff. But I guess what I'd say is it gives you a lot of confidence when you come through very difficult things, because believe me, leadership's not easy. Everything's not easy. It's not laid out. You don't have perfect information, so you've got to make the best decision you can make, and do things with what you have. Okay. For me, though, I think what's very important is to look at your soldiers and look at your employees in a company as kind of your customers, right? If you think about it, I think that's kind of the essence of kind of being a thought leader, because if you look at them as customers, you're going to want to satisfy them too. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't get it. That doesn't make sense. It does for me, because if you think about it, when you were at a lower level in a company and coming up, all of us have seen things that you say, my gosh, why would someone do that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I saw a lot of things not to do, but I also worked for a lot of great people that as I went along, that I thought, man, I'll definitely do that when I'm a leader. Recognizing people were doing something wrong. I mean, the 1 Minute Manager years and years ago, I don't want to date myself, but if you think about that, it said catch somebody doing something right. I mean, it's easy to catch somebody doing something wrong, but if you go around and point out the positive things rather than all the negative things, I mean, look, the metrics will show us things that are mistakes. And if you look at them as data, and you say, well, these are issues we have to deal with, that's a lot better than finding blame, right?
Right.
I think when you lead that way, people know that that's different, and they seem to embrace it, and not only that, they'll go to the wall for you
Right.
when they know they're treated with respect.
Absolutely.
And it's worked for me time and time again. And again, I didn't invent it. It was taught to me by several great leaders that helped me out.
That's so important. And when I'm working with CEOs and business leaders, that's one of the things I share with them is, think back in your past. Who's a great leader, somebody you really aspired to be like, that you learn from, and take those nuggets with you going forward. And what are the things that they did that you can use yourself as a leader? So I want to ask you something, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but we were talking earlier, and you mentioned the term positive leadership. What does that mean to you?
Well, to me, again, there's a menu all of us can pick every day, right? If you want to pick the negative menu, you can do that. I mean, some people will say, well, it's being critical or whatever. Look, I believe that you can find issues, but be positive about it. In other words, again, I'm not really worried about who's responsible for mistakes. What I'm more interested in is who's going to fix it, and how do we get out, how do we satisfy the customer, and all that. And by the way, everyone that knows this, that we learn more by kind of defeat than we do by victory. Okay, so mistakes are going to be made. The question is, how do you handle those mistakes?
Right.
So to me, being a positive leader is being a supportive leader. Okay.
Mhm.
One that, part of your job as a CEO, I believe, and even a board member, is to develop people. I remember years ago, a general said to myself and another leader, the subject came up about someone that had failed at something as a leader. And the general said, you know what, to me, Scott, that's why people like you and I were put on this earth, to help others like that haven't been able to do things as well as us. And it made me feel like, you know what, he's right. You're trained to help other people.
Mhm.
Anybody can tear somebody down. The question is, how do you help them?
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen both sides of that, right? I know in my own life's experience, I've seen that people that tear people down, other people that help to build people up. You mentioned some mentors in your life. Is there anyone who stands out to you as the most impactful mentor throughout your career?
There's a couple of them. There's a guy named Paul Petrie, who used to be the chairman of a company called Boston Mutual. Very early in my career, he hired me and really gave me a lot of responsibility I never would have given me at that young of an age. But I mean, he really helped me out. But I think most recently, I don't know if you know that Paul Garcia. He used to be the chairman of Global Payments. Took
Yeah.
it public, was a CEO and all that. Since I'm in Atlanta, he was in Atlanta. He helped me out quite a bit. In fact, I reached out to him after seeing him speak a bunch of times and hearing a lot of great things about him. He was so funny that I reached out to him and said, I'm taking over a role as a CEO, and I could use a mentor. And he literally, invited me to his office, had lunch brought in, and he said, I've never had anybody ask me this. I was just shocked. Talk about a positive leader and a funny guy and a very accomplished guy. I mean, he's on several boards right now. He's been on, Dun & Bradstreet's board. He's on Truist's board right now. But a very accomplished guy. And I have to tell you, he and I both share kind of leading with humor a lot. I mean, he's very funny. I mean, we spend a lot of times joking about things rather than tearing them down. So he, to me, his advice was great. And look, he could have left his role. He's a great example. Something very negative happened, a data breach with their company years ago.
Right.
He could have left like a lot of people do during that. He stayed through it. The last thing you want to do is say that, he left on his watch after something bad happened. He stayed through the hard time and brought it back to a great thing again. That, to me, was a perfect example right in front of me of how you do things right as a leader, But he's been very helpful. We talk all the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's been very helpful to me.
Yeah, I always like to say, it's part of my personal belief is, as leaders, we need to, not only for our employees and our families, but leave our communities a little bit better off before we arrived.
Great. I love it.
I love it. Hey, so, there's, you've dealt with public companies, private companies, in your career, what has helped you be the most successful, do you think?
I think, quite frankly, it's really two things. Surrounding yourself with people that, and quite frankly, are smarter than you. I mean, I think the teams that I've built, I tend to kind of go on the side of getting people to get along, working with people that get along. I like getting along. I'm not big for kind of a bunch of infighting. So groups that get along and really like and have fun working together, that's helpful. So I sought to kind of hire people that, and again, I don't think you hire from resumes. I think you hire from kind of capability. And that,
so, we talked about values a little bit. So I've heard that as a leader, you tend to foster a culture around family values. Tell me more about that.
you know what? And again, everybody's got their, we're all a result of our experiences, right? Me, I just was lucky enough to be born into a family where, big family, 7 children and, the 2 basic parents, right? So think about it. In our family, everybody had their role. Okay, everybody's different. Everybody has their role. And so to me, it followed on in sports and school and everything else. You know, there's a coach in sports, just like there's a dad in a household and things like that, or dad and mom. Um, and so when you go all the way through into you know, your work life, you know, look, if you think of things as your company as a family. In fact, a lot of times you'll hear people say you know, our company is X, and all these little other companies that are with us are the family of our family of companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, family's a big deal. People come to work, you know, very few people, you know, live to work. You know, they work to live, right? So they're there to earn money so that they can support their families. So if you think about what's most important to them, I hear people say all the time, well, we want to know what makes them tick. I can guarantee you, a lot of folks out there, family's important to them.
One of the things I like to understand is there what I call a defining moment? Is there something that stands out to you that helped to shape you to be the leader you are today that you think was a pivot point or a defining moment in your life?
Well, you know, there's so many. I guess for me though, that you know, I played competitive tennis. You know, I played a lot of sports as a kid, and then even up into college. And I guess what I say is I had a personal coach that I played tennis at a high level, and I had a personal coach that's in the Hall of Fame, a guy named Sven Davidson. And the work ethic that this guy, you know, just kind of I don't know what I'd say forced on me, but what he taught me was a kind of an undying work ethic. And if you think about it, I mean, he was much older than me, but when he was brought up in Sweden, I mean, when he told me these stories of working and then going and playing tennis, I mean, when he decided to coach me, he literally, I didn't hit a tennis ball for the first 30 days that he coached me. And you say, well, what were you doing? I was running, I was lifting. He said to me, have you ever run around this park? And I said, I was a kid. And I said, it's like 5 miles. He goes, yeah, I know. Go run around, and when you're done, come on and see me. It's almost like you think of that movie, The Karate Kid,
right?
Wax on, wax off type of thing. Well, this guy spent 30 days getting me into shape. And he said, look, when you go out there and play this thing, I want you to be in as good a shape when it gets late in a match and the other guy's dying, you can play your match. Well, it's not magic. You're going to win because you're going to be in better shape and better trained than the next guy.
Yeah.
So, you know,
preparedness, right? Do the work.
Exactly. I've been very fortunate, believe me.
That's awesome. That is so cool. I am so honored to have you on today as my guest. So one final question for you and for the folks that are watching and listening out there. What advice would you give someone who's an up and coming leader or a current CEO or business leader? What wisdom and advice could you give someone who's coming up you think that might be really impactful and really helpful for them?
Okay, well, I guess, you know, first of all, stick to what's important to you. Okay, you know, your value set. But I think, you know, it's the never give up and continue to work hard thing. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, I think a lot of times I see people, you know, you're going to get knocked down. The guy that keeps getting up and keeps getting up and I mean, think back to Rocky, right? You know, I remember parts of the movie where they said, you know, the guy, you hit him, you knock him down, and he keeps getting up, right? I mean, to me, I think if you're going to do that in business, I mean, look, I think it was Colonel Sanders who was told, I mean, some ungodly number. He was told no like 1,100 times before finally someone said yes, right? To me, that's, you know, that's amazing. You know, so to me, it would be kind of, you know, keep going at it no matter what happens. You're going to fail. That's okay.
Right.
That's how you grow.
Right.
Right.
Great advice, Scott. Great advice. I am so honored again to have you. Scott Peters, everyone. He's a CEO, successful CEO, board member. He's run multiple companies in very many different industries. Again, thank you for your service to our country, U.S. military and West Point graduate, and a family guy. Family values are really important too. And I just love this opportunity to spend time with you today. So thank you.
Well, thank you, John, for the opportunity to talk with you today. I enjoyed it.
Great. Have a great day.